Hey, what's up, guys? How are y'all doing today? Today, we're going to get into lots of different topics. We're going to get into forever chemicals. We're going to talk about microplastics. There's going to be some stuff about women's beauty products we're going to talk about. All of this stuff is to save your health, is to help you realize that there are things that are poisonous in your everyday life. Everyday life. It is so scary to think about all of the toxic chemicals we have inside of our bodies because of these toxins that are in our environment, and there's really nothing that we really can do about it except for to reduce exposure. So we're going to get into some clips from a video that or a podcast that I watched that provides a lot of information about it. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to pull it up real quick. All right, here we go.
Rate and incidence of cancer is almost non-existent. At least it was almost non-existent. But now some of these chemicals have spread so far and wide. And one example being PFAS. They're known as forever chemicals because they don't degrade. They can travel so far. They basically cover the globe. They are found in polar bear fat. So that just tells you how far up the food chain these chemicals have traveled because they don't break down.
It's in polar bear fat. And they don't even eat anything that has these chemicals in them except for maybe us.
As soon as an animal eats it and then it gets eaten by another animal, so on and so forth, then it reaches the apex predators, right? And it's stored in their fat. And in polar bears, it's been seen that you can find some of these chemicals. So we know how far and wide that these chemicals have gone.
That's really crazy to think about, that our choices are affecting polar bears.
That even these tribes that are in remote locations aren't necessarily exempt from being exposed. They're also getting exposed. It's just in the air, it's in the water, it's in the soil.
And what chemicals are those? PFAS?
PFAS.
What does that
PFAS. So per and polyfluoroalkyl substances.
Remember that. PFAS.
It's a huge chemical class of about 15,000 different chemicals. And that includes things like PFOA, PFOS, and PTFE, which are more commonly known as Teflon, non-stick chemicals.
Like this non-stick pan that I have here.
Exactly.
So there's that PFAS.
Who's got non-stick pans in their kitchen right now? Raise your hand. Notice how I didn't raise my hand? It's because we don't. I only use cast iron, to be honest. And this is why. I'm going to show you right now.
PFAS.
Yes, PTFE is the chemical name for Teflon. So Teflon is used to create the non-stick coating. And it is believed that because it is so chemically stable that it wouldn't come off the pan into your food. But that's not true. There's evidence showing that there is transfer from the cookware in normal cooking conditions into food.
Okay, so how crazy is that? Because I know everyone watching this probably, or at one point in their life, had non-stick pans in their kitchen. And if you haven't, then I guarantee your parents have, because this isn't widely known information that has been talked about a lot. It's in the works of being talked about a lot more because we're in this trajectory of society where we're now caring about our health, and we're finding out that our environment is so toxic for us. The water, the air, there's toxic products all around us, and one of them is these Teflon pans, the non-stick, to make it so it's more convenient for you to clean them so things don't stick to them, as if you always have oil or butter on the pan. But we find out that when you heat them up on the food, it absorbs those chemicals, and then they get stuck in your body, and your body doesn't know how to break them down. That's why they're called forever chemicals, is we can't break them down. They stay forever. Let's get back in the video.
Not only that, when you heat that pan high enough, it will vaporize and get into the air. And if you inhale it, you run the risk of experiencing what's known as Teflon flu. And it basically has flu-like symptoms when you inhale that stuff. And so that would be considered an acute exposure. So a one-time higher dose exposure. But what we really need information on are the chronic low doses that we're getting just by cooking our daily eggs on there.
Have there been any studies done on the impact of people cooking on these versus people that don't cook with these non-sticks or the Teflon pans?
Well, I can tell you that they've measured the amount of chemicals that are coming off of the pans. And so if you've ever had a non-stick piece of cookware, it scratches very easily.
Yeah.
And some of these scratches are microscopic and invisible to the naked eye.
Have you guys ever heard or been told by your mom at one point not to use metal spatulas on her non-stick pans? That's exactly why. Is because it scratches the stuff off and then it absorbs into your food and into the air even more.
Studies have found that a surface scratch can release 9,000 particles from that nonstick coating into your food. And if it's a crack, that number jumps up to 2.3 billion.
Okay, so I've said this once and I'll probably say it a bunch more. 1 million seconds is 11 days, okay? 1 billion seconds is 31 years. From 11 days to 31 years. How crazy is that? That's such a huge difference from what she just said into billions of particles of this chemical. Billion is crazy huge number.
Particles that are transferred into your food.
And what's that going to do to my health? What are these PFAS doing to my health?
Well, PFAS are linked with several types of cancers. So kidney and testicular cancer, thyroid disorders, which thyroid problems are so common these days, but they're not normal. Then we have increased risk of miscarriage, preterm labor, preterm birth, preeclampsia, which is high blood pressure during pregnancy. Could be deadly. You also have increased obesity that's linked with PFAS chemicals.
Okay, before we continue, I just want to point out, she just mentioned a whole bunch of health issues that are directly linked to these PFAS chemicals. How is it that as a society, we haven't done whatever is necessary to make the organizations or the institutions remove these chemicals and or ban them from us if we have direct links to these severe health issues? It's really, really concerning that humanity was even able to get this far along. I'm glad that we've finally started to open our eyes and see the world for as it is and see that we're just in this really toxic environment majority of our lives so that we can learn and research the information necessary for us to have the most happy, healthy lives. And that is to take care of your body and prevent yourself from being exposed to toxic chemicals.
And PFAS also contribute to an increase in endometriosis and PCOS.
Oh, really?
So people who have endometriosis and PCOS, they have found to have higher levels of PFAS in their bodies. And PFAS are found in everybody. No one's exempt. Everyone has PFAS in our bodies. Oh.
That's one thing I also wanted to say. Is this video is not meant to scare you because everyone has these chemicals inside of them, the microplastics, the phthalates, the artificial dyes, the damage that it's done inside. We all have been exposed. Every person and animal on the entire planet has been exposed to these toxins. So it's not like you're realistically going to get at them away from you or get away from this environment unless you lived in some sort of bubble. But the idea is to reduce exposure. So the best way to prevent harm from these toxins is to tell people this information so that they can do what they need to do to reduce their exposure.
Whether or not they're able to exert toxicity depends on your inner environment, depends on how many other chemicals your body is working to fight off.
I just pulled up some studies here. One of the studies from 2023, which you might be aware of, showed that higher levels of PFAS in the blood of women in Singapore were associated with a 30 to 40% lower chance of pregnancy and live birth within 1 year. Another study sampled 381 blood samples from people trying to lose weight, and no matter the diet that these participants tried, they gained weight if they had elevated PFAS exposure. What the hell? They gained weight even if they tried different diets.
Yeah, so these chemicals are known, endocrine disruptors are also known as obesogens. So they're increasing the prevalence of obesity. So you store more fat and you can't lose it.
How crazy is that? Why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't we talking about the fact that these toxic chemicals are inducing obesity? They're encouraging, influencing our body to put on more weight, which you know from what you've seen in your life as well as the information that's been provided to you that obesity is not good. Sure, everybody is built perfectly and just the way that they're meant to be, but obesity does cause health issues. I'm obese. I'm really actively working on trying to lose weight. Not because I really want to be skinny, but because I want to reduce my exposure to disease or to some sort of ailments that make it so I can't live as long as possible to be a father and have grandkids and see all of their lives all the way into adulthood. That's the goal. That's the reason I'm such a health freak. It's not because of anything else, but the fact that I want to be an old grandpa and hold my grandkids. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully this information vibrates with you. If it does, I really appreciate maybe a like, a share. You could even comment below if you've heard any of this stuff before. But the one thing I would like the most is if you vibrate with my message, please subscribe and join the team. You could also hit the bell notification and it will get notified every single time I drop a video. Let's get back to it.
Well, the chemicals that you're being exposed to through your cookware, through food packaging, they're also sources of these endocrine disruptors.
Now, this is where we're going to get into something that I'm really advocate about. I tell everyone about it. All the people that know me know about it. It's about plastic. Plastic is everywhere. Really, take a second and just think about how much plastic is around you right now. Cups, water bottles, it's in our clothing, it's in our bed sheets, it's in our blankets, it's in the carpet. It's in our food is packaged with it. We cook our food with things that are plastic. We eat our food and consume our liquids on things that are plastic. And we heat all of those things that are plastic up in the microwave. Plastic is everywhere. This information that she's about to talk about is really serious. I could not emphasize more. Microplastics are really serious. The average human consumes a credit card's worth of plastic every week. What? That is crazy. That is so mind-blowing that we eat that much plastic. I don't. I'm aware of this information, and that's why I'm sharing this information with you, because it's really something that your body cannot break down, and we are turning into plastic Barbie dolls. Let's get into this.
What about cancer? Is PFAS linked to cancer? Have they done any studies on that with animals or?
Yeah, in humans, it's kidney and testicular cancer.
Okay. What about prostate? I know that's a big concern for a lot of men in particular.
I haven't seen direct evidence on that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was also linked, because that's also a hormonal tissue.
A study from 2021 in mice at the University of Illinois found that a high-fat diet combined with PFAS exposure could cause changes in prostate cells that promote tumor growth. Is there an alternative to PFAS? Is there something that I could use instead of this non-stick pan?
Yeah, just get rid of the non-stick chemicals altogether. And that would be something as simple as cast iron, stainless steel, glass cookware, ceramic cookware.
It's just a bit more annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, non-stick cookware is amazing. I mean, you can make food slide off, cleanup is a breeze, but at what cost? You might be saving time when you're cooking, but how much of that time is being taken off the back end of your lifespan?
Period. You might be saving time for convenience, but how much of that time you saved is worth the amount of time you will lose because of potentially falling ill at an early age or getting dementia because you didn't pay attention to the amount of sugar intake or all of these things. Like, if you want to live a long and healthy life, these things need to be taken seriously.
Is the question.
So you're saying throw this away?
I would. But see, that's the other thing, is if you are then hearing this and you're like, I got to get rid of my cookware. Well, guess what? You throw that out and it ends up in a landfill, and the PFAS chemicals are now in the environment where they won't go away.
So I'm throwing
So it really depends, right? If you are in the position to where you can get rid of it, then it might benefit you. But the key is to really stop buying it.
So the thing that happened recently with me moving into this townhouse is when we moved from our last place into here, we did not take anything from the kitchen. We replaced and removed all the plastic and all the toxic utensils, pots and pans, cups, plates, bowls, etc., etc. We now only have glass, cast iron, and steel. That's it. It's the best for you. Like you're about to find out with the information she's about to provide, it really is this serious.
But you already have it.
Yeah.
So it's really up to you.
In terms of cookware, that's better for me. Avoid the non-stick, go for stainless steel, cast iron. What about the utensils then? So things like, I've got a plastic spatula here in my hand. Is this good?
No, because that's melting. It's breaking off into little tiny bits and fragments of microplastics and nanoplastics in your food.
So bad spatula?
Yes.
Okay.
The silicone rubber, the plastic. If you just think about the fact that it's being heated up, if you've ever looked at one, the integrity you'll see it starting to fray. If you see any bits coming off, then you know it's definitely breaking up and getting into your food.
Yeah, there's loads of little pieces missing from the end of the plastic. And I guess that's gone into the food most likely.
Right.
Slowly dissolving over time.
Right. Because with non-stick cookware, you can't use metal utensils, right? You'll scratch the surface. But guess what? Even with that, you can scratch the surface.
So the wooden one here in my left hand, that's better.
Yes. At least from a safety and microplastic and non-stick chemical perspective, yes.
Are you concerned at all?
No, not at all.
Okay. So wood is fine.
Wood is totally fine.
Okay.
What people normally will say is, I can't properly clean the wood. But I haven't had that issue. You just clean it with soap and water and it is fine.
The only time I've ever had an issue having to clean wooden utensils or wooden bowls or anything like that is if you leave the food in or on the utensil for a long period of time so that it could dry out and then harden. At that point, you might need a little bit more elbow grease to clean them. But if you clean them right after you use them, it's pretty simple, actually.
So we'll keep the wooden spatula. What else in terms of cooking for it? So I've got this pan here. You're saying this is a good one? Stainless steel?
Yes.
Great. Keep that one. Keep that one. Okay, what about this? Nice plastic container. Super convenient. Put my lunch in it. Go to work. Maybe pop it in the microwave.
What do you think the biggest problem with this container is? Is it the fact that you store your food in it or that you microwave it? Comment below what you think is the right answer.
Get my takeaway in it. Plastic container. Good?
Absolutely not. Do not microwave plastic containers. Even after just a few seconds, you'll get release of billions of microplastic particles into your food just from a tiny square centimeter.
Again, billion is a huge number.
You'll get billions of microplastic particles. And with microplastics, they're hard. It's a solid mass. It does not break down in the body.
What if it says BPA free?
That's great, but it's still plastic.
Remove all the plastic from your entire life. Seriously.
Microplastic is still nanoplastic releasing. And it probably has phthalates in it, depending on the type of plastic.
Right. Okay, so you don't want to be microwaving these. And,
Yeah.
and if I get microplastics into my food, what's the net impact? What's the harm of that?
Well,
What do you think that the harm of getting plastics into your food is? Don't use Google or a chat GPT. What do you actually think? What is it that you think that the long-term exposure to microplastics inside of our body has done to us? The answers are really terrifying, to be honest. The results and the statistics and the research they've done about microplastics is horrifying on what it's doing to our health. And no one's talking about it.
plastics don't break down. They don't go away. Again, they're accumulating in human tissues. So they've actually been found in a whole number. I'm pretty sure they're all over the body at this point. We just have to see the evidence to know, right? And so they're in human lungs, blood, in the gut tissue. They're in heart. They're in brain. They are in the placenta. They're also in penis. And they have been detected in...
There's microplastics in my penis?
Yes, there could be. Studies have shown that. And even in newborn babies. So when babies are born, they have their first bowel movement, which is known as meconium. And in the meconium, microplastics have been found. So
now, this is getting to be a little bit too much information. Not only are we as adults making choices that are affecting every human on the planet, one, maybe because they don't have the information regarding their health and these toxins, or two, it's because they're just a human. They're just human and they're just stuck here and there's really nothing they can do about it. And now I'm finding out right now that it's happening and there's microplastics in the babies that are in the wombs. So they haven't even had a chance to decide yet whether they want to be exposed to microplastics or plastic at all. Not even have their parent decide that they're not going to put microplastics around their child. They're just being born with microplastics already inside of them, and there's microplastics in the placenta. Isn't that terrifying? Isn't that something that you should be telling everyone you know about, the dangers of plastics? I feel really concerned. That's why I made this, wanting to make this video. I have to share this information. I have to get this information out. You should do the same. If you share the video, I will generally appreciate it. Maybe clip it, put it up on TikTok, or just talk about it to all the humans around you so that everybody knows the severity of the plastic epidemic that we're currently going through.
that means babies are being exposed to microplastics in utero. They're being born with plastics in their body.
And what's the risk of that?
Well, the risk is that they don't go away, number one. And on a cellular level, they're causing inflammation and oxidative stress. And oxidative stress is free radical damage. And what that means is if you ingest these microplastic particles, which everyone is, and they're in your tissues, and your body cannot get rid of them, then they're basically like the equivalent of a million little fires all over your body. And unless you have enough detox capability, like antioxidants, to get rid of them.
Berries have a ton of antioxidants. You should eat berries. A lot of them.
There to stay.
What do you mean by detox capabilities? As in my liver and...
Yeah, exactly. Every cell in your body has some antioxidants in it. If you didn't, you would be dead. Because in order to live on this planet and breathe oxygen, we need antioxidants to neutralize the free radicals that happen through cellular respiration, right? So whenever we breathe oxygen, there are free radicals that are created. And our cells have naturally in them antioxidants like glutathione, and they help to neutralize these free radicals. But glutathione is also vital for detoxifying environmental chemicals. So if you think about it, how does the body decide what's more important? Do I neutralize these free radicals because I need to breathe and live? Or do I have to deal with these chemicals over here? I don't know. So you're literally being torn. Your body is torn at this point. What to deal with first?
We're so toxic in our environment and in our body makeup that our body has to choose whether to survive or to get rid of the toxic chemicals that we're exposed to. How scary is that? That's really terrifying.
Usually it's the oxygen. I need to breathe. So let me neutralize the free radicals from breathing oxygen. Then I'll deal with these chemicals later if I have enough left in the tank. And most people don't. Modern lifestyles are resulting in depletion of glutathione. Our glutathione is being robbed by these microplastics, by these parabens, phthalates, and other chemicals that you find in consumer products.
You have to sum up in a sentence what microplastics are doing to us. What would that sentence be?
Go ahead. Comment below in one sentence what you think plastics are doing to us.
Slowly killing us over time. We're becoming plastic. We're actually known as the Plasticine epoch. Humankind is more plastic. Eventually, we will become more plastic than we are humans if we can continue at this rate.
More plastic than we are human. Let that sink in.
There have been over 300 million metric tons of plastics produced.
300 million metric tons. That's a lot. In this recent documentary that I watched called The Buy Now Shopping Conspiracy on Netflix, I recommend you watch it. But it said something crazy that like 2 tons of plastic is produced every minute or something wild like that. Plastic is killing us. Get rid of the plastic.
I mean, that's a really big number, but I can't really wrap my head around it.
And they don't go away. They don't go away. That's the problem. They just continually break up into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller fragments.
A 2024 study on microplastics in human livers, kidneys, and brains found that all of them contained microplastics, but the brain contained 10 to 20 times more than any other organ.
The brain contains 10 to 20 times more plastic than any other organ. Isn't that something that people need to start talking about? Our brains are retaining plastic. I mean, I can't express how crazy this is. Like, I really feel so heated up right now about how wild it is that our brain has a percentage of plastic.
The brain's measured around 0.5% plastic by weight. That's a Guardian article. So does that mean 0.5% of my brain is plastic?
Yes, and that's because plastic is fat soluble and the brain is mostly fat. So microplastics travel there through the bloodstream, we inhale them, they go to the brain and they can't leave because the brain does not have the ability to detoxify itself the way that other tissues do.
So with that simple fact alone, that there's plastic in your brain, I hope this scares the living crap out of you.
I guess I wasn't expecting the plastic.
Right. So it's like, who's this? I can't get rid of you, so just stay. But then what is it doing to you over time?
What is it doing to our brains over time? I'll go through this away, by the way. I'm not going to microwave my food in plastic anymore. What is it doing to our brains over time, do you think? Is there any associations?
I haven't seen any clear evidence, but my hypothesis is that it's increasing the likelihood of cognitive decline. And the brain is one of the most important, obviously the most important organs in our bodies.
The most important organ. We wouldn't have consciousness or life or anything without the brain. I mean, I guess you could say that about every organ technically because our machine is just so perfectly made that we haven't ever been able to replicate it. But I would just think that the brain's the most important.
And brain problems don't usually show up until you're in your elder years.
Right. Brain problems like dementia or Alzheimer's. Studies have now shown that we think that Alzheimer's is diabetes type 3. It's from a lot of sugar in your brain. Imagine what that's doing to you if you have plastic in your brain as well. I could only imagine how much easy and much more susceptible you are to getting these diseases if you aren't aware that you've been introducing toxins into your body for 70 years. It's kind of compelling and crazy at the same time.
But I'd be interested to know if the rate of dementia, if people are getting dementia and other brain related disorders earlier, just like cancer. I would not be surprised if I saw that.
We drink out of these stainless steel cups here on the Diary of a CEO. Are these okay to be drinking out of?
Because they're not leaching microplastics into your drink.
BPA-free stainless steel. Okay. They weren't expensive. That's good news. But sometimes when I go to shops and supermarkets and stuff, I grab these plastic bottles full of water. There's been a lot of conversation around plastic bottles and water. Are these safe to drink from?
Hell no! They're not. They're not safe. And here's why.
In your opinion?
Well, if you have no other option, then that's what you got. And so I don't want people to think I can never drink bottled water ever again or I'm going to die, because that's not the case. I myself traveled here. I had to drink from bottled water because I didn't bring enough of my own water with me. Is that something that I'm going to panic about? No, it's not. Is it something that I want to do? No, but I need water. So that's my only option. But if you are able to avoid that, then absolutely avoid bottled water.
Have there been any studies done on bottled water?
Yeah, there have been so many studies showing that bottled water is a major source of microplastics. Because if you think about it, plastic is not meant to be permanent, but it kind of is. But at the same time, there are certain conditions that promote leaching. And one of them is if you put that plastic water bottle in the sun, UV causes plastic to break down. So that's releasing microplastics. Just squeezing it, physical force is causing microplastic shearing and release. But not just that, just over time, the plastic is just leaching on its own. Temperature is another factor. So if you leave that in a hot car, microplastics. If you've ever had a bottle of water sitting in a hot car and you drink it and it tasted like plastic, that's because it's plastic. It's becoming more plastic.
Okay.
But the microplastics are releasing endocrine disruptors, right? The same phthalates that we talk about in fragrances are also in plastic water bottles.
What about these water bottles that a lot of people have?
Just so you know, the fragrance section is about to be... Just so you know, the fragrance section is coming up. But we need to stay away from those too.
Now, the kind of like Stanley Cup style water bottles that are made of this metal. Are these better?
Yeah, definitely. It's the same as these stainless steel cups.
Yeah. Okay, so everyone should have one of these for their water.
But not only that, it's also more sustainable, right? Because plastic bottles make up the majority of plastic waste in the environment. And all of those are breaking up, again, into smaller and smaller microplastics and nanoplastics that are basically polluting everything now.
And getting into our soil, which then gets into our food, which then gets into the ocean, et cetera, et cetera. It's literally everywhere.
Okay, so instead of that plastic container I had, this glass container for the microwave and for my food is better.
Perfect.
Okay, but what about the lid? The lid's got these little plastic handles on it.
Yeah, so what I would do is take the lid off if you need to heat up your food.
Okay.
And what I also do is keep a space between my food and the lid so it's not in direct contact with the plastic.
How do you keep it space? No.
Just don't fill it all the way to the brim.
Oh, okay, just keep it.
Just keep a little space.
Okay, cool. So that's good.
It's the contact with the plastic. I mean, if you need the container and you need a lid to store your food,
Okay, cool.
this is, I mean, I have those too. So
Keep the lid.
just the thing is just try to keep your food from touching it if you can.
Okay. What about this coffee cup? I went to, you go to a Starbucks and you go to a coffee shop. They give you these takeaway coffee cups, which are made of like this sort of papery feel.
The next information is actually going to be terrifying because I know from my personal experience on the amount of times I've used cups just like this. How many times have you used a cup from the gas station that was paper, or from McDonald's or Starbucks or anywhere, Juice and Java, any of the places that use plastic cups? You know what I'm saying? It's really kind of crazy once you figure out what she's about to tell you.
Bad, indifferent.
Get rid of them. They're terrible. So they're basically lined with plastic. And studies have shown that within 15 minutes of contact with a hot liquid, you're getting 25,000 microplastic particles in that cup. And some people don't drink their coffee in 15 minutes. They'll let it sit longer. And so the longer it sits, the more leaching there is. And not only that, the lid is plastic. So as the hot liquid is passing through the lid, there could also be leaching of microplastics. That plastic lining also leaches heavy metals. So there are so many issues with that cup.
These cups are everywhere. Heavy metals and microplastics. Never drink out of a paper cup again.
You seem really pissed off with the
I'm actually they're so pervasive. And I remember being in Germany about 10, 15 years ago, maybe, something like that. And coffee to go was new. And at the time, I come from the US, those have been around forever. I was like, why is this new? I don't understand. Coffee to go, why is that a thing? And my husband said, it's because we sit down and drink our coffee out of a mug. We don't take it to go. So this is like appealing to tourists.
Well, what's wrong with coffee to go? Is it the container?
It's the container. So if you bring your own container,
Or
Starbucks will fill it up. Or if you bring your own container, some shops will fill it up for you.
And I've actually done that quite a bit. They've never given me any issues. Always just filled it in whatever cup I asked for, just so you know.
And they might even knock off 10 cents because
They never gave me a discount, though.
your own container.
So I'd have to bring something like, I guess, like this, which is a steel
Right.
with a little glass lid.
Right.
Okay. Just okay.
It's a plastic lid. So if you can, take the lid off to drink. But if you can't, again, don't stress out over it.
Okay. We've been through some of these things so far, just on the consumables. Okay, fine. Okay, so and last question on consumption stuff is about food and water. Shall I be filtering my water?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you live in an area where water has been fluoridated,
How I know?
you've got to check the water report.
Secret fact number 1, fluoride calcifies your pineal gland, which is your third eye, which basically is your secret door to this energy field and spiritual world that we live in. So you might want to protect your pineal gland. So then get a water filter that filters out fluoride.
Municipalities have water reports. And if not, you can go to the EWG, the Environmental Working Group. They have a water report database that you can check. So just type in your zip code of where you live, and it'll tell you what contaminants are found and which ones exceed safe limits. And it's very helpful to know.
What if I
what's in
get
your
these
water.
kind of like, these little plastic water filter systems you can get where you put it in the fridge, you pour the water in, and then you put like a little filter thing in, you replace it, and then you pour it in. Are those good?
It depends on what type of filter you have.
Okay.
Some of the more mainstream, lower cost, lower end options do not remove fluoride, number one, and they don't filter nearly enough chemicals.
My water filter cost me like $140, but I'm telling you what, it's the best water I've literally ever drinking. It filters out fluoride and other harsh and toxic chemicals. It remineralizes the water as well as turns the water into alkaline water. We are electric beings. So alkaline is a little bit of an electric charged water, which is actually really healthy for you as well.
Tap water is a source of hormones, so endocrine disruptors, pesticides, heavy metals, fluoride, if it's added to the water, agricultural runoff. There's a bunch of different contaminants in tap water. Depending on where you live, some are worse than others. And there have even been tragic instances of lead, high levels of lead because of the lead piping that water is transported through. So we've got to be careful with the water that we're using to drink and cook with.
Okay, so right now, I just want to encourage all of you. You can either drop in the comments how long it's been since you've drinking tap water, or you can comment, I will no longer drink tap water. I think that is super important for everyone to do. That's why I'm requesting the commitment down below in the comments.
What's a sort of low-cost solution to this for people that are concerned about the water that they're consuming and their families are consuming?
Yeah, actually, there have been studies showing that you can boil your water. So if you boil your water, that can actually remove a significant portion of the microplastic pollutions in there. Because of, if you've ever noticed, after you boiled water, there's sort of a white crust at the bottom of the pot. That's actually calcification. And the microplastics get trapped in that calcified layer. But that still doesn't take care of all the other chemicals that are found in tap water. So the best option is to filter it. Some filters are more accessible and affordable than others. Reverse osmosis removes the most contaminants, but it also it generates the most wastewater. So it isn't the most efficient. And it also can remove beneficial minerals, which you then have to add back in because it's not good to drink demineralized water over time. So there are different options that you can use, but the best option, you have to filter it at some point, at some level, depending on where you are. So check.
You have to filter it. You heard her. You have to filter your water.
Water and look for a filter. So carbon filters are effective for the most part, but you want to check to make sure that the filter can remove fluoride as well.
Okay, well,
It wasn't so common that you see cancer in your 30s, 40s, and even 50s. Now we're seeing a shift. The window is moving earlier and earlier. Cancer incidence, like you said, breast cancer incidence is definitely on the rise.
Haven't you heard or just realized that by looking out into the world that all terminal illnesses are just like skyrocketing? Cancer has been killing us for a long time, and we don't really ever know why, right? We're still like spending millions of dollars like researching for a cure when nobody wants to talk about it's probably the water and our environment and the food that we're eating which is causing the cancer.
I myself never knew anyone that suffered from breast cancer or survived it until I hit my 30s. Then I knew 5 people that had it, including 2 people that I worked with in the toxicology lab.
and what are your suspicions about the root causes of this rising cancer?
I definitely think there is a huge environmental component to it because a lot of what was believed decades ago was that disease and cancer incidence had to do with your genes. You were just genetically predisposed. You were unlucky. But in actuality, what we're seeing now is that the environment plays such a massive role in whether or not you actually have cancer. So just because you have the predisposition to developing breast cancer, such as the BRCA gene, doesn't mean you'll get it. It really depends on your lifestyle and how you lived, but also how your ancestors lived, right? We talked about the multi-generational effect of these chemicals, depending on how your ancestors lived, how your grandmother and how your mother lived.
Because our DNA is like a computer that stores data and information, and the DNA is passed on from generation to generation and generation. Some of these chemicals and these toxins are so harmful for us that it alters our DNA and changes them. So when you have children, or you maybe potentially the generations above you had children, they're just passing on these toxic chemicals and these predispositioned diseases that you might get just because you were born.
Could predispose you to this.
And have there been any studies that show the impact of these sort of everyday chemicals on cancer risk?
Yes, and that's something that is, I don't want to say that it's exciting, but I'm glad that we finally have proof. I don't want to see these studies. I hate seeing this, actually. I'm really angry that people have to suffer with cancer because it's so preventable. There was a study recently that looked at removing certain ingredients from beauty and personal care products. So women without any history of breast cancer were asked to remove these ingredients from their products for 28 days. So that's very short. 4 weeks, right? They took cells from the breast tissue. They were all normal. They measured the amount of breast cancer gene expression. After 28 days, they took another sample. So after 28 days of removing these ingredients, they took another sample, and they saw that the breast cancer gene expression dropped.
Right there. That right there is a good enough fact for me. Every woman should hear this. These are things that you need to take out of your beauty products and your cosmetics and your shampoos and your conditioners because they are causing cancer. Just like that, you remove these ingredients, and within a few weeks, they're seeing significant decreases. Isn't that enough evidence to tell companies that they can't put these in the products anymore? For some reason, it's not. So we have to do the work. We have to tell all the women in our family and in our reality that they need to be aware and pay attention to these toxic chemicals that I guarantee a majority of them are being exposed to.
And the only thing that they were asked to change about their lifestyle was to remove these ingredients from their beauty and personal care products.
And which products were they told to remove? What ingredients were those?
It was skincare, deodorant, shampoo, things that most people are using. And the ingredients were phthalates, which can often be found in fragrance. So the seemingly innocuous little term on the ingredients list, fragrance or parfum.
Now, they're in the UK, so they're saying parfum when we would say it perfume, just so you know.
Can contain a huge number of chemicals. It's hidden behind this umbrella term because by law in Europe and in the US, manufacturers do not have to disclose this. It is considered trade secret.
So with the fact that they don't have to disclose it, just so you know, in perfumes and in fragrances, they can literally put whatever they want inside of it and then just label it fragrance, whether it's toxic or poisonous or carcinogen or whatever it may be. They don't have to disclose the information because they want to protect their company and their profits.
And within that chemical mixture are known carcinogens, endocrine disruptors like phthalates, and the most potent allergens known to man. And with phthalates, the reason that they're in fragrances and that manufacturers love them so much is they're what are known as film formers. So it helps the fragrance to stick to surfaces like your skin, your clothing, and it helps to make it last longer and linger. So if you've ever sprayed something on yourself and are still able to smell it hours later, that's a telltale sign that you've been exposed to phthalates.
That's every human on the planet. Every human has sprayed some sort of fragrance. So every human has been inhaling this toxin for all of time since aerosol and spray stuff was a thing.
You have phthalates in that fragrance, in that product.
And how many deodorants on the shelf have phthalates in them?
If it's got fragrance in it, almost all of them.
Okay.
It's code for endocrine disrupting phthalates, essentially. You can assume that. And in fact, it's safe to assume that they contain phthalates.
So, I mean, this is one of the deodorants that I often use. It's just for anyone that's just listening, it's just like one of the deodorants you'll find on a shelf in any store that comes in a little, is this an aluminium can? Yeah, it is, an aluminium can.
Aluminium? I think it's funny.
Does this have phthalates in it? How do I know?
So you just turn the container around and
Yeah.
check the ingredients list. Do you see a word fragrance / parfum?
Yeah, fragrance, brackets, parfum.
That's what you're looking for.
Okay, so I shouldn't be spraying this all over my body.
Right.
Okay. well,
So
that's-
sometimes
that's
you'll see on there, it'll say phthalate free.
Okay.
Right. That's helpful. But that still doesn't take away the fact that there are known carcinogens and allergens in there. So if you've got any kind of respiratory problems, any kind of skin problems, and you just don't want to expose yourself to unnecessary carcinogens, then it would be beneficial to avoid fragrance.
What about a little spray? Just a...
I mean, it depends. Is that really going to benefit you? Are you going to get any effect from that little
I
spray?
don't want to smell. So this is why I spray this, because, this top is quite tight. So if it's tight and it's hot in here, I'll end up smelling. So I just spray it, and then I'm really, it's public service for other people, really. I'm fine to smell myself. I can't even smell it, but it's for, Jack and the team.
Well, the question would be, can you find a safer alternative? And the answer is yes.
How do I find a safer alternative? What am I looking for?
So you don't want fragrances.
I don't.
And you definitely, yes, so avoid the word fragrance unless it says that the fragrance comes from essential oils.
Essential oils. That's what we need. There's lots of options. They're quite cheap, and you can make all sorts of things that provide beautiful and scentful aromas through essential oils without using a fragrance ever.
Okay, but if it comes from essential oils, will it still make me smell nice?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, because that's where aromatic compounds come from. They come from plants. But just to give you more context on this aerosol spray, this is one of the worst products that you can use.
I've been using it every day.
Yeah, so I'll tell you why. Aerosols use propellants. Propellants are derived from petroleum. And there was a recall on thousands of products within the last couple of years that the propellants were a source of benzene contamination. And benzene is a known human carcinogen that you do not want to be inhaling. Because what you inhale goes to your brain. It goes quickly all over your body through the bloodstream. You don't want to be delivering a known human carcinogen into your bloodstream.
Right? We don't want to be delivering a known human carcinogen to our bloodstream. And it's happening through what we smell and what we breathe in because people are just spraying stuff literally all over the planet.
It's not helping you at all. Because benzene is known to cause leukemia in people. So it's a no-brainer if you want to avoid that, to avoid aerosols. But not only that, if you think about how you're actually applying the product, you're spraying it like this, right? In a stream, and it heads toward your face. Then that's also an inhalation risk because there's particles in there. There's solids in there. You don't want to be inhaling unnecessary things. So the best option for deodorant is to look for something that has essential oils and is a roll-on or a stick, solid.
Is there anything on the label that I can trust when it comes to deodorants? Is there like a certain term that I'm looking for? You said phthalate free. Is there anything else there?
Yes, so phthalate free and paraben free are definitely helpful.
Okay.
Because then we know at least 2 of the known endocrine disruptors that we have evidence on are not found in that product. But that doesn't exonerate everything else. We still need to be diligent about the ingredients because they are sources of contamination, of byproducts, of carcinogens, and hidden toxins.
So there you have it. Really, she just said it all in one phrase. We just need to read the ingredients. That is such a powerful comment. Read the label. A lot of these chemicals are just labeled right on there and we just don't know what they are. I try my best to stay away from any type of chemicals or any type of ingredient that doesn't sound like a real thing that was created on Earth. You know, some phosphate triglyceride or whatever that may, or whatever, you know. It's the chemicals that we're putting in our body. That is honestly why we're in this health epidemic. That is probably why we're in a mental health epidemic. That is probably why there's more people that are anxious and depressed than all of history, is because of our health. Our health is important, right? So get rid of the plastics. Get rid of your nonstick pans. Stop with the fragrances. And make sure you're checking your beauty products. You should really be reading every label to everything to make sure that you're not forcing yourself to be exposed to these harmful and toxic chemicals that really are killing us over time. I don't know. If you vibrate with my message, I'd appreciate a follow, a subscription. You could hit the bell button, little icon down below, and it will notify you next time I post a video. There is a part 2 of this. This video specifically that I wanted to break up is very long, so I wanted to break it up into 2 parts. But until we meet again, I love y'all, y'all trippy ass motherfucker.